Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shawn Wilkie. Thanks for joining us today. We're very excited to have a friend of mine, Stacy Pursell. I would almost say you have celebrity status in the vet world, Stacy. It's so good to have you here. We're going to host a really engaging webinar today. It's going to consist of a half an hour discussion followed by a 10-minute Q&A. And once that is over, I'm going to do a little demo of Talkatoo. So if you're curious what Talkatoo is, stay around for 2 or 3 minutes after the webinar, and we're going to show you what Talkatoo is. So let's move into our topic. As you're probably aware, the number of available veterinary jobs has outpaced the number of job seekers consistently since 2019. According to data compiled by AVMA, clinics across the US and beyond are struggling to fill positions. Seekers have their pick of employers, and what that does is change the entire industry. It's been really interesting to kind of just see all of this unfold. So we're super excited to have Stacy here to kind of help us kind of unpack this, to take a look at what can be done, what's happening in the industry. We're going to discuss what good jobs look like, what healthy practices in the veterinary world look like, and what a good job offer should ultimately look like and entail. So super excited to kind of jump in. Like I said, my name is Shawn Wilkie. I'm the CEO of Talkatoo. We're going to do a little demo after our Q&A. And without further ado, let me introduce Stacy. So Stacy, like I said, is a friend of mine. She's the founder and CEO of the Vet Recruiter, the leading animal health and veterinary executive search recruitment firm based in the US. With 25 years of experience, Stacy is a true expert in this field. Stacy sits at the top 1% of executive recruiters worldwide. Stacy is the only certified personal consultant, CPC, and certified employee retention specialist, which is also very, very unique in the animal industry and veterinary profession. Stacy has placed more people in veterinary and animal health industry than any other recruiter in the US. You can find more about the Vet Recruiter at thevetrecruiter.com. Stacy, welcome to our webinar series. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Shawn, for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for that very kind introduction. And all those fancy credentials mean, when you break it down, all it means is I know how to hire people and I know how to retain them. So that's what I'm here to talk about today.
So it's great. So Stacy, you're truly a workforce expert. How would you characterize what's going on in the veterinary job market based upon your experience as a recruiter today?
Well, Shawn, in my 25 years as an executive search consultant, this is the hottest candidate market that I've ever seen. And what that means is that it's never been a better time to be a veterinarian. Candidates are in the driver's seat. There's not been as much of a shortage of veterinarians as I've been witnessing now on a daily basis. And I know that many people across the industry realize that there's a shortage of veterinarians and other veterinary talent in the marketplace, but I don't know if everyone knows just how bad it actually is. So I've got some data to back up what we're actually seeing in the marketplace. So according to Zippia, since 2013, the unemployment rate in the veterinary profession has decreased from 1% to 0.2%. And that really means that the unemployment rate in the veterinary profession is non-existent. That means that it's about zero. So just about anyone who wants a job in the veterinary profession either has a job or they can get a job very easily. And so there's not veterinarians sitting around unemployed that need work. Anybody that wants to work, like I said, they can get a job. So according to numbers released by the AVMA between January of 2019 and May of 2021, there were 18 open positions for every veterinarian looking for a job on the AVMA website. And there were also 6 positions open for every technician and assistant and 12 positions open for other veterinary positions that were either not a technician or assistant or a veterinarian. And then also, if we look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or the BLS numbers, in April of this year, their statistics show that veterinary jobs are projected to grow by 17% between the years 2020 and 2030. So we're already 2 years into that 10-year window, but in terms of the raw numbers, that is 14,500 more new jobs during that 10-year time frame. So if you look at the BLS data, there's going to be 4,400 job openings for veterinarians each year on average during this decade. And so those openings will exist because of a variety of different reasons. So one reason is workers are leaving for other job opportunities, or they're transferring to other occupations. Some are exiting the workforce altogether due to retirement. And of those 4,400 job openings each year, 1,450 of them will be brand new positions. So when you look at those numbers over a decade, that equates to 44,000 job openings. So if you think it's tough to find veterinarians right now, what these numbers are predicting is it's going to be even more difficult to find veterinarians and veterinary staff in the future if something doesn't change. And there was an article in today's Veterinary Business in February of 2021. The number of veterinarians who are retiring each year is approaching 2,000. And according to data from the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges, about 3,000 veterinary students, or a little more than 3,000 veterinary students, graduated in 2020. So if you've got 4,400 job openings every year and only 3,000 students graduating, you're left with about 1,400 jobs left unfilled between 2020 and 2030, and that's year over year. So that's 1,400 jobs for each year between 2020 and 2030. So that helps to explain the situation that we're in right now.
It's absolutely fascinating and paralyzing at the same time. We have an industry that has seen a massive influx of new customers, new pets, new pet parents, and a shortage of veterinarians like we've never seen before. So I guess all of that data says to me what you said, which is, what a great time to be a veterinarian. What a bad time to own a practice in some ways. And I think if we kind of carry this forward, because a lot of the people that are joining our webinar, welcome everybody. It's great to have you here. A lot of people are here probably thinking, maybe it's a good time to switch jobs. Maybe it's a good time to just take a look at what's around. Maybe I'm being underpaid. So Stacy, with all of that kind of in mind, what are the elements that make up a great job offer? If you're now all of a sudden a veterinarian sitting in the driver's seat, what should you be looking for?
Well, first and foremost, higher wages and bigger bonuses are a big part of this current market. So the law of supply and demand is dictating this because there's a scarcity of veterinarians in the job market. That means veterinarians are more valuable, and so hiring them is going to cost you more money. So to give an example of this, our firm has been placing veterinary students who haven't even graduated yet into six-figure jobs with big sign-on bonuses. And this has become the rule rather than the exception. And I've only seen one job offer go out to a veterinarian personally in the last 18 months, students included, that was less than $100,000, and that was $95,000 in rural Kentucky. Every other job offer that I've seen that's been accepted has been $100,000 or more. So what makes a good job offer? I've got a top 10 list of things to consider. So the first thing, and these are not in any particular order, but the first thing on the list is the base pay competitive, and does the compensation meet your financial needs? The second thing is there a solid benefits package? Is there good health insurance? Are there good things like a retirement plan, vacation pay, sick pay, family leave? And then some offers right now have equity or stock options. The third thing, what are the work hours? So consider the hours that you'll be working each week. Do the hours allow you to have some free time to do other things that you want to do outside of work? And then the fourth thing to consider is consider the commute. So a job with a shorter commute may allow you to have more free time. A longer commute may be worth it, though, if you enjoy the job. And then number 5, consider the responsibilities of the job itself, because it's important to find a job that you'll enjoy and where you're going to be happy at work. And an ideal position offers you responsibilities that keep you engaged and where the work is interesting. And then the sixth thing is consider the job title, because the job title defines your position in the company or clarifies your position, and that can be meaningful to some people. And then 7 is company culture. That's a big one. I would say that that's even more important than compensation and benefits. You want to find a culture that matches your preferences and work style, where you can thrive and not just survive. And then number 8.
Stacy, can I just stop you for a second? Little selfish plug for my podcast, the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. We had a whole episode with Stacy on just a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about company culture, and that's actually how this webinar came about. It was so awesome that I was like, we need to do more. So Stacy, back to number 8. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's a great reminder. Is there a career advancement and growth opportunity when you're considering an offer? You might want to examine it and see what the career path is. Is there a chance to build your skills and where you're going to continue to grow? And then number 9, this is important, the stability of the company. Is the company strong financially, and are they more likely to retain staff and grow, or are they in a tough financial position? And then number 10, the demands of the job. So what are the expectations of the workplace? A job that might require you to be on call may be less attractive than a position that has set working hours, for example. And then I also have a short list of reasons that you should turn down the job offer. And those include the mission of the organization is not a good fit, the culture or values of the company don't line up with your values or the culture where you will thrive, the compensation or salary is not in line with your financial needs, there's no career growth or development, the company has high turnover or is unstable, and the benefits package is not competitive. And if I can, Shawn, I want to share a story, because we had a situation happen last year that really helps emphasize the job market that we're in. So if you're an employer and you make a job offer with a substantial jump in pay, it doesn't mean that the candidate is going to accept your offer, because practices can't afford to lose veterinarians. So if you have a candidate that you make a great offer to, more than likely when they go in to resign to their current employer is going to make them a counter offer. And so last year we had a candidate who received an offer that included a 79% increase in base pay and a $50,000 sign-on bonus. And his employer made him a counter offer with a significant increase in base pay and a $40,000 retention bonus. So his employer's counter offer was worth $20,000 less than our client's offer, and he still accepted the counter offer because he said his employer made it easier for him to stay than to go. And then, one of my points was talking about the work environment. Right now, a great veterinary job offer is going to include schedule flexibility, because people are prioritizing their personal life over their professional life. And candidates know that they can get the money they want in this job market, so they're willing to sacrifice money to get the flexibility that they want. And that's especially true of the younger generations. And then another big thing, and I mentioned it before, is company culture. Veterinarians are stressed these days. There's many demands on their time, and so they're not going to accept an offer if it's going to bring them more stress. They're looking for a collaborative culture that's based on trust and respect, and they want to feel as though they're respected and their voices are heard. So those are all the things on my list.
It's so awesome, Stacy. I mean, this top 10 list, we're going to figure out a way to share it with the audience, because I know there's lots of people that will be very helpful. And I think more importantly, when should you turn down the job offer? Because, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, just because you have a higher base salary doesn't mean that you're going to go into a job that you're going to feel comfortable with. And that's a big deal. Money is not everything. And I think that that's really what this market has shown a lot of the people that are looking for opportunities, is that money is one component of the total compensation package, but time away from the office and all of the other things that you listed are a big deal. So Stacy, one of the things that I've heard over and over again inside the vet world is this idea of employer of choice. It's like a catchphrase that's thrown around a lot, but what exactly does it mean, and what relevance does it have? Does it actually have? What is a good job at a healthy practice, and what does that job look like? Sorry if that's too
Well,
that's too many questions at the same time, but there you go.
no. So what it means is being an employer of choice, it's closely related to the organization's employer brand. So the more positive your employer brand is, the more likely that your organization will be considered an employer of choice within the marketplace. So there are some things that help brand a company as an employer of choice, and those include you have an extraordinary work environment, you have a healthy culture, job seekers and candidates want to work for your organization, or at the very least, you're on their short list of employers. And then something else that's really important about that is your best employees want to stay with you even when they're being courted by other employers, because it doesn't do you any good to hire top talent if you can't retain them. But one thing to keep in mind about employer of choice is that what may be an employer of choice for one person may not necessarily be an employer of choice for another person. There are individual differences and preferences among people, but I do have a list of 12 things from balancecareers.com that make an employer a great place to work. And they are, number one, and these are in no particular order, but competitive salary and benefits. Two, they have a compelling mission statement and vision. Three, job security. Four, empowerment and authority. Number five is access to information. People want transparency. Six, they want a commitment. They want to know that their employer is all in. And then seven, involvement. They want to know that their employer, that they care and they're involved in the business. Eight is positive relationships with coworkers. And nine, this is a big one, is work-life balance. 10 is performance culture. 11 is fairness. And 12 is recognition, because people really crave recognition. And then on the flip side, there are also some things that keep an employer.
Just 1 second before you go on there, because I know that I hear this all the time, and it's something that I've chatted about quite a lot with other people, practice owners, people in the industry. This have a compelling mission and vision statement. What the heck does that mean? And why does it matter to job seekers? And can you give maybe an example or two of like why that actually should matter? Because I believe in it truly, but I think a lot of people just hear this and don't really understand it.
So what the compelling mission statement and vision goes back to is your why. So why do you exist as an employer? Why is your organization in business? Are you in business just to make money, or are you there to serve a greater mission than just being in business to make money? So they're looking for something that has to do with the greater good. Candidates don't want to just come to work to help their employer make more money. They want to come to work to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So as an employer, you need to identify your mission statement and vision, and then you have to communicate that to the candidates, and then the candidates have to know why they should come to work for your organization. And there needs to be a compelling reason for them to join your organization over the hundreds and thousands of other organizations that are hiring as well.
Yeah, it's super duper important. I mean, I'll share selfish plug for Talkatoo. Our mission statement is to save veterinary professionals time in their day. And if you're interested on how we do that, I'll show you after the webinar. But back to your point, Stacy. Sorry about that. I just couldn't help myself.
Well, I would agree with your mission statement because I have Talkatoo here, and it saves me time. So I'm a user, and I recommend it. So we were talking about things that make your company an employer of choice, and I've also got a short list that keep an employer from becoming an employer of choice as well. And this list are things that candidates have told me firsthand. So this is actually my list. So they include the company has a poor reputation in the marketplace, the compensation or benefits are not competitive, the company is unorganized, the business doesn't have good systems. And this is a big one, the way that the candidate was treated during the hiring process. And I've got countless examples of good ways candidates have been treated, and then negative ways that candidates have been treated. Just examples like, the candidate got there on time and there was nobody there to greet them and meet them. It was the interviewer was unprepared. So how they're treated is very important. A lack of technology, that's a big one, Shawn. That ties back into Talkatoo, because recently, we have a client that has no electronic medical records, and for the younger people, that's a hurdle that we encounter when we're recruiting for a practice that doesn't have electronic medical records. And so just last week, I had a client that was on paper records, and he said, I can't imagine typing all this stuff into the computer. And I said, well, go check out Talkatoo. That'll save you time. Another one is lack of mentorship opportunities, and then lack of continuing education and no opportunities to learn new skills. So striving to be an employer of choice should be very important if you're hiring, because the competition is so fierce. You have to excel in these areas or your job opportunity won't be considered.
Absolutely, totally makes sense. So, I mean, if I'm now sitting in the driver's seat as a veterinarian, one of the very few that are thinking maybe there's a better career out there, what should I do as a veterinary professional? I guess we can open this up to technicians and really anybody in the practice. If you're thinking that you want to find a better job, a better career that will advance your life and your career, what should you do? Where do you start? Do you just, go on LinkedIn and, take a look, or do you apply? Like, how do you even start that? Especially considering somebody that maybe has been in the same career, same job, same practice for a decade. And, the thought of even going out and looking for a new career is kind of daunting.
Well, the first thing is networking. So it's not just what you know, but it's also who you know. You never know where your next great job opportunity is going to come from. And include recruiters in your network, because recruiters have access to job opportunities that you may not know about. They have jobs in what is called the hidden job market, and those are the jobs that are not advertised. And then second, always be striving to learn more and engage in continuous education, because your education doesn't stop as soon as you graduate from school. That's only the beginning of your education. So seek out a mentor. There's many veterinarians who are willing to serve as a mentor. There's a lot of wealth of information and expertise that they're willing to share. And then third, your career is probably not going to unfold exactly as you thought it will, and that's okay. So what's important is how you react when things don't go as you planned, and then remember there's opportunity in the midst of chaos and adversity. So when negative situations come up, don't focus on the negative and the circumstances. Instead, focus on the possible opportunity that exists within those circumstances.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, Stacy, is with every seed of adversity, there's an equal or greater opportunity. So if you're one of those people that right now is maybe not in a great place, realize that there's an equal or better opportunity waiting around the corner for you. So Stacy, with all of these things kind of that we've chatted about so far, what are the top things that a veterinary professional can do, in your opinion, to grow their career in the current kind of environment that we find ourselves in the middle of?
Well, the first thing in the key to career success is to be open to opportunity. And one thing that I want everyone to remember from today's presentation is that having career success is all about having access. So having access to opportunities. And that means be open to considering opportunities even if you're not looking for a new job. If you come across opportunities, or if one is presented to you by a hiring manager or a recruiter, if you're not open to those opportunities, then you won't be able to take advantage of them. And then you can't grow your career. And remember that being comfortable and maintaining the status quo is not going to get you where you want to go, because having access to opportunities is key to career success. So don't turn down things that you don't know anything about. Be open to listening, and then decide when opportunity comes up. And then the second key is to be proactive. So be proactive, network, do your continuous education, because you're affecting and influencing the conditions and circumstances. And when you're proactive and not reactive, you're moving from a position of strength instead of a position of weakness. And it's always better to be proactive and take control of your destiny. And then the third is to add value. So the more value that you can provide to your current employer or future employers, the more valuable that you are. So continue to learn new technical skills, your soft skills, your people skills. All of those things are going to going to help you grow in your career.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I mean, the world is kind of opening back up again. So get out, network, go to those vet shows, go to the conferences again, see people and look for opportunities. Stacy, you're such a wealth of knowledge. I always appreciate all my time with you. And just a note for anybody that's joining us, use the Q&A feature. We're going to have a Q&A section when we get through these questions, and super excited to kind of hear from the audience. So Kev, those questions keep coming in. So Stacy, even though it's a candidates market out there, what challenges exist for the veterinary job seekers in the market today?
Well, one challenge that exists for the job seeker is the danger of getting too complacent. It's too easy for people to fall into the habit of being comfortable and wanting to maintain the status quo. But just remember that the status quo and being comfortable is the opposite of growth. One of the things that I say often is, get comfortable with the uncomfortable, and resist the urge to be comfortable, because you could squander the many opportunities that are available for growth. And I've had employers reach out. I've had clients of mine tell me stories about when they reached out to somebody in their organization to offer them a promotion or a chance to move into a different area, and they turned it down because of fear. And you can't let fear make those decisions to get in the way of you growing your career. There's just so many opportunities in the marketplace, so sometimes that can be overwhelming. If you are open to opportunities, considering how many job openings out there, it can take time and be difficult to navigate through all those different jobs to try to find the right position for you. Good recruiters can help you do that. They can be your eyes and ears in the market, and they can help you weed out the jobs that don't meet your criteria. And then another challenge for professionals is their personal branding, which is the experience that somebody provides for another person. So the more positive the experience, the better. So right now, because there's so many jobs, people tend to think, well, they do have the leverage in the situation. And so I've seen people take advantage of that leverage and burn bridges. I've seen people go through interview processes and do things that are unprofessional, like ghost an employer, not show up for the interview, or make outrageous demands, or change their salary requirements at the very last minute, thinking that it's okay to do that because there's a shortage of veterinarians. So just keep in mind that the veterinary profession is very small, and burning bridges just because you're in high demand, that can follow a person throughout their career. So you don't want to close doors. You don't want to burn bridges. Remember, job markets can change in the future, and it may not always be a candidate's job market.
Yeah, totally. And your reputation follows you around forever. Stacey, I've got one more question, and I'm going to take some questions from the audience. So, I mean, it's like a modern day war for talent. And I can relate to this because engineering and software engineering talent in our business, in the software business, is the same. But what things can employers do? So let's switch the tables around. What things can employers do to really win the war for talent? What do they have a chance, and what do they do? I'm sure they want to know.
Okay. Well, employers have to become recruiting and hiring experts, because the margin for error is non-existent right now. So employers, first of all, have to recognize that the priorities have shifted for veterinary professionals. So priorities were changing even before the COVID-19 pandemic and before the current Great Resignation, and that's because of the influx of the millennials, the Gen Zers. They crave more flexibility and a better work-life balance than the members of the previous generation. So employers need to realize that people, their lives are more defined than just their job. And so you have to tie into what you're offering into what's in it for them. And so employers have to recognize their employer brand, like we talked about before. What is your why? Employers have to cultivate a strong employer brand, and then attract candidates with that brand. And then they also have to be aware that when they do court somebody through an interview process and they make them an offer, that there's a good chance that that candidate is going to receive a counter offer. So you're not just competing with other employers that are hiring in this market, but you're also competing with the candidate's current employer. And we have heard stories of candidates testing the market just to see what other offers they can receive, and then taking those offers back to their current employer to try to get a counteroffer. So employers need to have the ability to close the candidate, because closing the candidate is important, especially in this market.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know how we did it, Stacy, but we burned through all of the time that we had for the session that we put on today. And we've got a list of just unbelievable questions. So I'd really like to jump into them, because I think there's a lot of need for your expertise. So if you're okay with it, let's do it.
Let's go for it.
The one that popped up right away for me is, how do you justify a signing bonus for a new associate when I've got 7 other vets that will be totally upset with me if a new vet gets a large signing bonus and they don't? As a practice owner, I can't afford to pay that bonus to all 8. What do I do?
Yeah, that's a tough situation, because if you're not offering a sign-on bonus to that younger person that you're trying to recruit, there's a chance you might not get them because other practices are offering the sign-on bonus. What we've seen some practices do is offer retention bonuses to their current veterinarians, and like you were saying, you may not be able to afford to do that, and that is tough. Your current employees, they might have an opportunity, and they would have an opportunity to increase their pay likely if they went and interviewed somewhere else and got a higher salary and a sign-on bonus. So if you can afford it, you could offer them a retention bonus to stay over a period of like 2 or 3 years. It could be, hitting milestones. You get X number of dollars after staying, the first 6 months or the first year, and then X number of dollars after staying the second year, so you're not paying it all out at once. But the best way to combat your people leaving is going back to what we were just talking about, becoming the employer of choice, because money is not the end-all be-all. In fact, it's not the number one thing when we look at what's important. It's the culture, it's the work-life balance. If you're offering the best culture and work-life balance and schedule, and you're treating your employees well, there is a good chance they're not going to leave to go somewhere else for more money.
Really, really interesting. Great answer, Stacy. So another one here. I'm in my 50s and I feel like ageism has held me back. Do you have any suggestions? People assume that I'm not tech savvy, that I can't take direction, and that my training is dated. Or that I have physical capabilities of producing, or I'm physically incapable of producing a good workday. So many practice owners these days are younger than I am. Do you have any suggestions?
That's a tough question, and I don't know who asked that question, but I'd love if you would follow up with me and call me after this webinar. I'd love to dive into that a little deeper and better understand some of the specifics about your situation. So, but just to address ageism in general, I mean, you have experience. You've got more experience than the younger generation. So, use that to your advantage. If you're a high producer, if you've got good relationships with clients, you have to consistently add value to yourself and to your current employer to be valuable. So if you're continuing to grow in your continuous education and your training, if there are skills that you don't have that you need to learn, go get that education to learn those new technical skills.
Yeah, that's awesome, Stacy, and definitely follow up with Stacy, her details in the chat. So here's an interesting one, and there's been lots of discussion about this on the internet forums. How can I negotiate for a laddered non-compete that is not effective the first day I start my job? So it sounds like maybe somebody has talked to one of the corporate consolidators in the marketplace. What do you think about that, Stacy?
Okay, so to make sure I understand the question, how do you negotiate a laddered sign-on bonus?
Yeah, so for a laddered non-compete, so it looks like maybe something that doesn't take effective right away. I think that's what they're looking for.
Okay, so the question is about a non-compete in a laddered non-compete, so it doesn't start right away.
Yeah.
So,
So they're basically looking
okay.
for a trial period for their new position.
Okay. That's very interesting. You kind of threw me with that question because I actually have not seen a laddered non-compete before. I've either seen a non-compete or I haven't seen one, but I haven't seen a laddered one. So I have to think about that question a little bit. Can I
I
follow
mean,
up on that
yeah,
afterwards?
and I would say like just ask, right? Like just say, you know what, be honest, be open in the job seeking market. It's a really important thing to be open with your potential new employer. Say, can my non-compete take effective 30 days after I begin my position? There is things that can be done. And if you're reasonable and if the employer that you're talking to is confident that they're going to provide you a great workplace, it may be just as simple as asking the question. And Stacy, absolutely, you can follow up with them. Feel
Well,
free
I
to
was
reach.
going to say that's a great answer, and into Shawn's point, let them just be transparent with why you're requesting that. If you've got something that you're trying to ask for, just transparency, and well, this is the reason that I'm asking this, and this is my concern about it, and just talk through it.
Yeah, if your reason is because you might want to work for a competitor that's down the street that's willing to pay a little bit more than they are, then that's going to go over like a lead balloon. But if it's a legitimate concern that the employer that really would like to hire you is trying to is willing to work around, then I think transparency is key. You're starting what hopefully will be a long-term relationship. Every time there's an employer-employee relationship, it's meant to be long-term. So if you start with transparency at the start, I think it would definitely help.
And to your point, Shawn, when you're talking about the long-term relationship, in any relationship, if it's one-sided or it's not, perceived as being fair by both parties, it's not going to last. So if both parties want it to work long-term, both parties have to feel like it's a win-win for each of them.
Yeah, and that transparency from job offer to employment, if you start with transparency as the cornerstone, you're going to have a much better career regardless of any industry that you might be in. And so another really interesting question, Stacy, are you seeing a trend in DVMs exiting clinical positions for more corporate software, animal health jobs, pharmaceutical operations, coaching? Is that a thing? Is that happening? Is there an exodus of veterinary medicine that you have perceived?
The AVMA did a study in the last couple years, and there was I don't remember the number, but there was a very high percentage of veterinarians who were interested in leaving clinical practice to go into industry. But on the flip side of that, there are more jobs open in clinical practice than there are in industry. So while there is a high percentage of veterinarians that want to leave practice to go to industry, the number of jobs open in industry is very limited, and it's very competitive to land those positions, especially with all the consolidation over the recent years in industry. Because when I first started, I think there were 60 something, significant industry companies, and today we have 10 major industry, especially in the pharmaceutical business. So, the answer is I do see some people moving from practice to industry, but I wouldn't say that I'm seeing it happening in droves. I'm seeing more people interested in those opportunities in industry than people that are actually getting those opportunities, because just because somebody wants a position in industry doesn't mean they're going to be able to find exactly what they're looking for. And like I said, more of the jobs that are open are in clinical practice.
Oh my God, I love all the questions. Like we're not going to be able to answer them all. We have that many, Stacy, which is super great. So people are very appreciative of you being here. So this is a really interesting one. I live in a very desirable area of town. I own a home and I'm raising a family. Therefore, they live in a desirable part of town for raising a family and owning a home. Therefore, there's a lot of competitions. There's a lot of competition for the job that she's willing to commute to. Do you have any suggestions for vets like her that live in an area that has a paradise penalty?
So you live in a paradise, and it's very competitive. Um, So, there has to be a give and take, I think. Either, you have to be willing to maybe sacrifice some things and not get, you might have to, have a little bit longer of a commute. Or you might have to work, a little bit of a different work schedule, or, there are a lot of the country, as we just talked about, are experiencing a shortage of vets, that there are some pockets in the country where they're not experiencing a shortage of vets because it's such a desirable place to live. And so if you're in one of those places that's very competitive, you might just have to, sacrifice some things because of the competition. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, and I'm going to double back and give my own answer. And it kind of ties into one of the previous questions. There's lots of other opportunities for veterinarians that are not in veterinary clinical practice. So, maybe work from home in your very desirable neighborhood for a software company as a chief veterinary officer, maybe get one of these remote jobs for some of the big pharmas or the nutrition companies, maybe expand your horizon beyond just vet med in clinical practice, or maybe do both. Maybe get one that's 4 days a week and still allows you to practice 1 day a week. So just a few ideas.
Or telemedicine.
Exactly. So just be open. Stacy, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you and spend a little bit of time. We make a promise to our audience that we'll stick to 40 minutes. We've done that, and I've got a quick little Talkatoo demo. So feel free to stick around. I'm going to share my screen, show you what Talkatoo is all about. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your questions. And Stacy, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure, Shawn. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Bye, everyone.
See you, Stacy. All right. So if you were wondering what Talkatoo is, we are a vision and mission-driven company, and our stick is to help veterinary professionals get some time back in their day. So I want to show you what our software does. So Meet Talkatoo. It's this little tiny bar, works on a Mac or a PC. Literally anywhere that you can type, you can use our software. So instead of typing your medical records by hand or your emails by hand, you open up our software, press the button, and speak into a microphone and watch what happens. Rosie jumped out of a truck yesterday and her owner noticed that she was limping. Her appetite was decreased. There was no vomiting, diarrhea, coughing, or sneezing. Her owner also noticed that her breathing has increased and she's a bit lethargic, period. New paragraph. Thanks so much for joining us for the webinar today with Stacy. I hope you found it informative. The demo is over. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And once again, thanks for joining us. So that's it, folks. That's how Talkatoo works. And it works anywhere that you can type. So not just in your practice management software, but literally anywhere. If you want to type an email, if you want to type a message on Slack, if you want to type an email, anywhere that you can type, you can use Talkatoo. Thanks so much for joining. If you're interested in Talkatoo, check us out online, talkatoo.com, or call us. We've got great people that answer the phone at every minute from 8 to 8 every day. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.